Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik from Figured Out Productions. The following video is a video of some kind, and I hope you enjoy it.
Hey guys, it's Adam here, and today I want to talk a bit about E3 2019, specifically the predictions. Now, I already did a video kind of exploring what I think makes an E3 conference good, and I feel like you should check that out first. But if you don't want to, and you just want to talk about, hey, what does that nerd think might actually happen at E3 this year? So these are guesses. Obviously, any one of these could be ridiculously wrong, and of course, there's going to be many things I'm sure I will have never seen coming, hopefully, because like I said in that video, surprises are a very key element to what makes an E3 good. So this year is going to be kind of, I think, a weirder E3 because we only have 5 conferences happening. Usually it's more than that. And part of the reason is EA, Activision, and Sony, which was the biggest shocker, as well as Nintendo, though that's nothing new, are not doing conferences this year. This year it's going to be Ubisoft, Microsoft, Bethesda, Square Enix, as well as the PC gaming show. Now, I will be at E3 2019 this year, again, for the 3rd year in a row, and I was invited to 4 of the 5 conferences. However, I turned one of them down. So I will be at 3 of them. I don't think I'm supposed to say which, but if you watched the previous video, you might have concluded it. But anyway, so we're going to talk about the predictions I have for these 5 conferences and what will possibly come of it. Now, keep in mind, we're deliberately not going to be talking about Sony or Nintendo or EA or Activision because they're not doing conferences. So to quickly go over those, Sony straight up said they're having no presence there. So I would not expect any sort of news coming from them unless they announce something separately on their own time, which I kind of doubt they would do because they don't necessarily want to fight with E3 for ad space. But I also at the same time imagine they'll do something, whether it's just some sort of like fire sale on PSN or something during it, just because it's E3 and they don't want to be completely irrelevant. But I imagine that that's as far as they're going to go. Activision and EA, I believe, will actually be there, but I don't think they're not doing conferences. I know Activision's there, like 100% I know they're there, but they're not doing a conference. They're going to have more of their new Call of Duty game, which supposedly will be called Call of Duty Modern Warfare, which it's like, pretty sure we had one of those, but whatever. And then EA, I'm sure, will be on site with content like Jedi Fallen Order and stuff, but I don't think that, again, no conferences. I think that their big game announcement was Jedi Fallen Order, and they already did that at Star Wars Celebration, which I was at. And so, yeah, I wouldn't expect much from them, again, in that regard. And then Nintendo will do their Nintendo Treehouse Live, so that'll be its own thing. And I'm sure it'll be a whole bunch of, new Switch content, which is to be expected. Possibly more about, like, whatever that Microsoft partnership is, as well as maybe some sort of upgraded version of the Switch. And that's from the hardware perspective. From a games perspective, it's always kind of hard to tell with them. It's probably a nice mixture of new content that they're working on, some sequels, as well as, tearing more content away from the Wii U that they're going to put up on there. Although at this point, there's only a couple of games I would think that they would even be interested in bringing over. Some of the, what was that RPG? Maybe like Xenoblades, and then I forget, the Tokyo Mirage XE or whatever that game is. There's a couple of those. Maybe some of the possibly New Super Mario 3D World, but like beyond that, I don't think there's really anything else they need to scavenge from the Wii U at this point. But that's just some guesses. New content, hard to say with them because they're very good about keeping stuff under lock and key. So that's the end of predictions there. So let's focus on the guys who are actually going to be there. Square Enix, I don't know really what, to be honest, to expect from them because they just put out their biggest, flagship thing, which was Kingdom Hearts 3. So I would expect some DLC announcements for that, possibly. I think it's a bit early, but maybe an announcement, just a base announcement with nothing behind it for Kingdom Hearts 4, but I think that's way too early. I wouldn't really expect that to happen. Beyond that, I think that they're going to focus more on a lot of stuff that they're bringing over from Japan that they're translating. Maybe, and this is my wild card prediction for them, is that they're going to try and be the guys who do more translations of Japanese exclusive content, because they're in a weird position where they could do that. They could be the guys who, because there's tons of games that only come out in Japan, and Square Enix is unique in that they could translate those things and present them to the Western audience because their name on it is usually, I'm not going to say a stamp of quality, though it kind of is, but it's a stamp of at least authenticity, that it's not complete shit. And so they could be guys who are very good at translating stuff. Do I really think that's going to happen? No, but if I had to come up with a wild card prediction for them, that's what I think it would be, is that they're going to announce they're going to do a lot of translation services. But I don't really think they're going to do that. So I think that big one is going to be Kingdom Hearts 3, and then just kind of upgraded and more improved content of what we already know is going to be out there from them. Maybe some more information on all the Final Fantasy stuff that they've been working on and all that, but I feel like that's it. Maybe more stuff on like maybe a possible Life is Strange 3, and that's it. As well as some new titles, but you can't really predict the new titles because you don't know anything about them yet. So that's it for them. I think that they'll also have probably the least interesting of, well, I shouldn't say that. They'll probably have the second to least interesting show of them all. The next one up is the PC gaming show. Now you guys know me, I'm not a PC gamer at all. PC gaming show is like the one I've actually never seen. I never even bothered watching it because from what I understand, it's literally just announcements of new hardware from PC companies like Razer and Nvidia and stuff. They just put, here's our new graphics card, and here's this, and here's that, and that's fine. That makes sense. That's what PC gamers want to see, and it's completely logical. The other thing I know about them is that that's also the last neutral space for third-party developers that want to show their game but don't want to pay for the bigger, space. So like certain companies, smaller third-party companies, they want to have their big game announced, but they don't have their own stage space. They're not going to share it with a different third-party developer. Like Ubisoft would have no reason to promote a game from Take-Two or 2K, let's say specifically, which is a subdivision. But like 2K has no reason to do that. Whereas 2K could put a game within the PC gaming ecospace, or they could put it in the Microsoft space or the Sony space, possibly the Nintendo space. But as Nintendo and Sony aren't going to be there, you have a bid choice between Microsoft and PC gaming. I can tell you right now, PC gaming is the cheaper one. So you might see some surprise game announcements in there, but from companies that are they have like one flagship title. So again, 2K is a perfect example, possibly something from Sega, although I don't think they're gonna do anything specifically. So that would be the area of interest for me, because I'm not a PC gamer, because those same games aren't necessarily PC exclusive. So again, that's kind of hard to predict, except to say that I think there will probably be more on like Borderlands in there, from Borderlands 3 maybe, and stuff like that. That's, again, not my area of expertise in that particular show. So let's move on. Let's get to Bethesda. I think Bethesda's show is going to be the one to watch for entertainment, because they usually have a good sense of humor. They're very willing to poke fun at themselves. And I think this year, after everything that happened with Fallout 76, I think they're going to get up there and they're going to own that. I don't think they're going to get out there and, bitch at people. I think they're going to get out there and just be like, we fucked up. Like, we know it. They're going to make fun of the fact that they screwed up Fallout 76, like, a lot. I think they're going to get out there and make fun of themselves. When it comes to announcements, I kind of feel like they're going to... This is bold, but I feel like maybe we'll get some upgraded Elder Scrolls 6 information, as well as maybe... This is one of those satisfy the investors types of announcements that I'm not usually a big fan of, but I think they'll do it, is some sort of new Fallout game that they openly make fun of the fact that it's not like Fallout 76. So like we're doing, I'm not going to say Fallout 6, but let's say Fallout, New California was an expansion. Let's say, so you got Fallout New Vegas, let's pick another city. Fallout New DC. No, they already did one in DC, didn't they? Fine. Fallout New Chicago. I live in Chicago, so why not? So Fallout Chicago, whatever. They're going to announce something like that. One of the side series that's more of traditional. I think they're going to do something like that, where they make fun of the fact that it's like, oh look, it works without servers. Like they'll just make jokes. But at the same time, they probably won't have a whole lot of development done on it. They won't have a whole lot of information, just like making fun of it while saying, don't worry, your safe Fallout is coming back. I'm sure you'll see a lot more information about the new Doom. Probably something about, that one I would definitely bet on. Like there's a lot of stuff for Doom coming up, I have to believe. Wolfenstein, maybe. Some of the other stuff. Probably some Rage 2 DLC will be on display there. Yeah, and then maybe some other stuff about how we're bringing more of our games to other platforms, that type of thing. Maybe some more of their legacy content is coming forward to Switch, especially. And then maybe entire collections, like here's an entire Elder Scrolls collection for Xbox One. It also depends on, this is a huge factor here, X factor, literally, the Xbox. If Xbox, we're jumping ahead, we'll get back to it. If Xbox announces a more formal name for their next console, and we already know PS5 is going to be a thing, you could see a situation where they start announcing bundles for it. Even if it's not releasing this year, like saying, for example, the entirety of the Fallout series will be available for PS5 and Xbox Beyond or whatever. Like, you might start seeing more announcements like that. So they might be, I think Bethesda might be doing some more compilations or whatever. That's another thing out there. But yeah, I don't know if I have really a wild card prediction for them, other than maybe just a big surprise as far as like how far along Elder Scrolls 6 is. But I don't think that either, because I think Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be a launch title with PS5 and Xbox Beyond or whatever. Yeah, I think they'll show you more information about it. I don't know if they're going to have any like super shockers. I think that they're just going to, the shocker, if you want to call it that, would be the Fallout New Chicago or whatever. Just because they have, but even that probably wouldn't be far enough into development to be that exciting. So I don't think they're going to have anything that's like, here's a big surprise game, and by the way, it comes out in a couple of months. I don't think they're going to have one of those, but I hope I'm wrong. So then we could move on to Ubisoft. Now, Ubisoft, this one's probably the toughest one to call, in my opinion. I think that what they're going to do is, I went to their 2016 show, as well as I went to their 2017 show and their 2018 show. The 2017 show was fantastic. It was full of surprise announcements like Beyond Good and Evil 2 and all this other stuff that really just got the energy going. It announced they were working with Nintendo, and Shigeru Miyamoto showed up, and they were doing Mario Rabbids and all this cool stuff. So it was like this big surprise thing, one after another, and all the games were like, whoa, whoa, whoa. And it was really cool. And then the next year was the transition year, where a lot of that stuff had to still come out. And a lot of that stuff, like their big one was supposed to be Assassin's Creed Odyssey, and it got kind of ruined because of a keychain being leaked that had promoted it. So that show was the lackluster show with less exciting stuff. That happens. You'll have your transitions years when you have so many games you're working on that are in such long development cycles. You can only reveal them once. You know what I mean? So I feel this year will be their kind of in between. I don't think it's going to be on the level of 2017, but I think it'll be better than 2018. I think that it's going to be updates for a lot of stuff. I think you'll get a release date for Beyond Good and Evil 2. I think if they have any sort of real surprise, it's going to be a new Splinter Cell game. That's a guess, because there's been rumors floating around for that for a while, and that's my guess. I think that's the new one. That's going to be the big like, hey, Splinter Cell is back. Beyond that, I don't know, because last year they tried to do this like star-studded thing where they brought out celebrities and stuff. But it's for a lot of things like Transference or whatever. Like, you remember that game? It was a cool VR game, but VR doesn't have wide enough appeal for most people to be able to actually use it. And I know people love their VR. The people who have VR love VR, but your numbers are small, unfortunately. The Sega CD sold more units than the PlayStation VR. Just saying. Like, it's just how it is. I'm not knocking it. It's just how it is. My point is, you need games that have a bigger and wider appeal, and I think Splinter Cell is in a perfect place to do that. They've already announced that new Ghost Recon game. I know that Skull and Bones isn't going to be there. I think this is the year they're taking a year off from Assassin's Creed, so you wouldn't expect that. But I feel like with them, Ubisoft has a kind of a familiar model. They don't like to do the really far away surprises. They do it sometimes for fan service reasons, like Beyond Good and Evil 2. But traditionally, they follow the let's announce it and ride that wave into the release type of thing, which is hard. And this is why you end up having a lot of leaks, like they did with Assassin's Creed Odyssey. So I feel like they're going to announce a couple of things that are familiar, that are around the corner, which is why I think Splinter Cell fits the bill. I think Splinter Cell is going to be announced, and I think it's going to be coming out this holiday season, at latest maybe like February of next year, March maybe. But that's what I'm guessing. I do think that they'll make several announcements for upcoming stuff, but I think it's going to be maybe a mixed bag between surprises and non-surprises. So like sequels, possibly remakes and collections, but yeah, again, it's hard to say for sure. But that's the one. If I had to go with the most bold claim, is yes, I think there's going to be a new Splinter Cell game. And then who knows? Maybe Just Dance. They might also reveal Just Dance 2020 is coming to the Wii U, which has the the Wii U collector, and he's like, ooh, yay! But even though I don't really care about Just Dance, I'm sure there'll be a new Just Dance game. That would be the non-surprise. That would be a surprise if there wasn't one. Let's put it that way. And also, I hope they keep up what is now becoming a tradition, because they did it last year as well when Starlink was coming out. Is you bring Shigeru Miyamoto in, and you have him there for some other new Nintendo Ubisoft crossover, whatever that is. I want to see another one. I think that they did a really good job with that with Mario Rabbids, and I think that I think everyone agrees, like, Starlink was not the best game, but if you played the Switch version and you played the whole Star Fox story mode, it was like, this was the Star Fox game we never got on the Wii U. And granted, it's on the Switch, but we never got this, and this was good. I feel like maybe they should own that. Maybe they should let Ubisoft make a Star Fox game or something. Just another crossover between those two companies. But, if you're going to do that, you have to also find, like, the ones that are the most appropriate. It's so hard to think about. But, I mean, like, wouldn't you love to see an Assassin's Creed, with Metroid Prime characters or Metroid characters? Or just, maybe that's not the best one, but, like, you get my point. Like, letting Ubisoft use the pool of Nintendo characters within their own franchises, and just kind of seeing what happens. I'd be very curious to see how that plays out. And I think you might get one. Just because they're trying to keep up that model. And because I think Shigeru Miyamoto is going to be there again this year, going into the next thing. But this is also a bold prediction. So let's move on to Microsoft and the Xbox show. I think if any of them, this is the one to watch. Like I said, I think the Bethesda one's the one that's going to be the most entertaining. I think the Ubisoft one might potentially be the most surprising, which is, I know that's not exactly what I said before, but now as I think about it more, I'm like, most of their slate is blank. So they might actually, I'm kind of reiterating that, or rethinking upon that, which is, I feel like, maybe Ubisoft is going to have a nice chunk of good surprises for us. Now, whether it's like I just want to go on about that forever, but let's not. Let's move on to Xbox. But I do think this is the one to watch, because Microsoft's in a very unique position this year. They're coming up with their new hardware, which they're the only of the 3 hardware companies who are actually going to be doing conferences, which is huge. That means they get to dominate that space and that discussion, which is awesome for them, and I know they're going to take full advantage of it. Because without Sony and Nintendo there, it's their space. And PC gaming, like I said, is not really a separate entity from them, and we'll get into that in a second. But I think that they're going to have a show that's an interesting mixed bag of, here's our new hardware. Like, they're going to talk about it. They're going to talk a lot about whatever the next version of the Xbox is. They'll probably do what they always do, which is some sort of sale of their current hardware around the same time. They'll probably have a nice slate of upcoming titles. I am boldly going to predict, maybe because I'm delusional in my hope, a Conker's Bad Fur Day 2. God, I want that. Like, I've been wanting that forever. I also think they're going to focus a lot on whatever these titles are, like your Halo 6 and all that, for the next generation of hardware. But then I think they're going to announce, Microsoft is good at this. They like to do surprises as best they can. Fandom surprises, which is under the Phil Spencer era, I love. Because Phil Spencer gets it. He's like, I understand that some of these things we're going to do have very little appeal on a mass level, but we do them to excite the base. Backwards compatibility is the absolute perfect example of that. Backwards compatibility of 360 content on Xbox One is not the most popular program. People like it, who use it, but in mass, it's not as successful as I think they were expecting it to be. And then the original backwards compatibility might have been so unsuccessful that they already stopped doing it. But the fact is they tried doing it and they still continue to do it, at least with 360 content. I'm hoping that he continues to do more stuff like that. So you might see a lot of announcements of that type of thing, where it's like, hey, by the way, we're also going to bring, you know, they're going to announce, hey, we're bringing all Xbox content to the new Xbox platform or something like that. I think that's a bold claim. I'm not really saying that. But I like that that's where his headspace is that he knows which announcements will get stuff going. So with that said, I also understand that Microsoft is in a weird position where they recognize something, which is they've been saying it for years, and I've been saying it for years too, like even before the Xbox One came out. They're getting ready for the pivot generation. There is a time coming, even though I'm nothing but a physical media dude. I hate digital content. I deplore it, actually. But it's coming. The time of all digital content. Now, I don't actually think the next generation, I used to believe that this current generation, the 8th generation, would be the last physical media generation. Now I believe the next one will be. And I think it's barely going to cling on to it. We already know, I mean, Microsoft literally already released an Xbox One without a disk drive. Like, they're preparing us for this. And PS5, we believe, will be a disc-based console. I believe that was already basically confirmed there. And especially with Sony being Japanese, they're going to want to keep physical media around. Now, Microsoft doesn't necessarily have to do that for reasons I've explained in previous videos. Since they can't win in Japan, they don't necessarily have to care about that problem. If you're not aware, the Japanese love their physical media, like love it. So you can't tackle Japan without it, at least at this point in time. Sony, Japanese company, kind of has to deal with it. Whereas Microsoft, since they can't win there, they don't necessarily have to care. But they're going to, because they also don't want to come out there and be like, we burned bridges with everyone who does care about that kind of thing. You also don't want to have a situation where Nintendo and Sony's stuff is on store shelves every, Best Buy or wherever you go, but you can't buy Xbox products. They don't want that either. So I think what they're going to do is multiple versions of this console. I think that they're going to have a diskless version that they're like, hey, you're just pure digital, save $50 and don't get the one with the drive. You can just download all your stuff. They're preparing you. That's where they want you to go. They're also going to have the disc-based ones for guys like me who are like, well, I still want your console, but I need the discs. Knowing full well that those discs are getting more and more useless, you still want them. I'm that guy. And also because then your stuff is in stores and they don't want people to think you don't exist anymore. So I think that they're going with that. But at the same time, as I've been saying, I was trying to say, Microsoft has been making it very clear for years now that console hardware is not really their future. They want Xbox to be more of a brand. I've been saying that for so many years, it's ridiculous. I used to go all the way back to saying, oh no, that'll be like a Steam competitor. That's their goal. They're gonna put it on, the Nintendo eShop and put it on the Wii U. We're talking years ago I've been saying this. But making the Xbox an app that appears on your computer, it appears on possibly your PlayStation, it appears possibly on your Switch, it appears on other things, maybe an app that appears on televisions. Microsoft is working towards that future, the cloud gaming service. It is inevitable. This is the pivot generation where they go from, we're doing physical hardware, we're doing more digitalized physical hardware, and the next time around, if there's a 10th generation, they're pure software. And they continue to prove this by continuing to be allies and supporting what should be their competition. Now, it's been out for a long time that Nintendo and Microsoft are now working together in multiple facets, which there might be more of an elaboration on that. I did a predictions video of that a long time ago, back in March of this year, about what I thought that might become, and even as bold and crazy as it might be, why it actually would make sense. We might get more information about that at this E3, at this conference. But also, as of late, we also got information that Sony and Microsoft are going to be working together specifically on their cloud service, which was a fascinating thing to read about. Because as I just mentioned, and I know there was already somebody fighting me in the comments, when I said that Sony is Japanese and therefore will do things for the PlayStation, a lot of people always point out, no, PlayStation's based in California, so that doesn't have an effect on them, which is fucking stupid. That is not correct at all. Sony is ultimately a Japanese company. PlayStation ultimately is a subsidiary of Sony. Sony pulls the shots. So if you don't believe me, feel free to look this up. But when Sony and Microsoft decided to start working together for cloud technology, PlayStation was completely blindsided by it. Do you know what that means? It means the American division didn't know, didn't want it, and had no choice but to do what the Japanese corporate overlords told them to do, because that's how that works. That's business. So when the Japanese corporate overlord tells the American subsidiary, you have to do this, they have no choice. That's just how it is. So just because they're technically in California, it means absolutely nothing. If Sony corporate tells them to do something, they gotta do it. And that's exactly what they're doing in the case of the cloud gaming service. So according to that article that I was reading, basically Sony was of the opinion that they can't do this alone. They can't have a cloud service that's sufficient of their own kind. They need basically a nice ecosystem. Who has the best? Microsoft. They're going to work with them on that future, which is another reason I think that, and Microsoft's been very willing to work with its competitors, its opponents, and this is the same with PC gaming as well, which should be their other one. Essentially, they're working with all three of their competitors, because PC gaming, they're also saying like, hey, by the way, if you get our game on Xbox, it's got crossplay with the PC version, there's a Windows version, etc. Here's another bold claim, I think they're gonna go further with that. I think Xbox Game Pass is coming to PC. I think if you have an Xbox account and it works on your Xbox One, your Xbox Beyond or whatever, it's also gonna start working on your PC. And there's gonna be some sort of app, if there isn't already, I'm not a PC gamer, there's going to be a way for that account, that ecosystem to exist on all of these platforms. And they've been telling us that since last year directly by saying that they want to put stuff in your phones and your television. Xbox will become a service eventually. It will not happen overnight, but it will happen eventually, where Xbox is a brand. And when you're tied to that brand, you can have your games on anything. You can have your Xbox experience on a Switch, on a PS4, a PS5, an Xbox One, an Xbox Beyond, your fucking television, your tablet, your PC, it doesn't matter. That's where they're gonna eventually get to. And then they'll just drop the traditional hardware once the Xbox brand is so integrated into other things that it doesn't need to be there. Now, how much of that are they gonna say at this E3? I don't know, but I think a good chunk of that is gonna be kind of elaborated on. But I do think that the big focus there will be that what the next console is and what it can do and all that type of stuff. I would hope for backwards compatibility. I think you'll at least get Xbox One backwards compatibility, and I'm betting you'll get the 360 stuff and the original Xbox stuff that's already compatible, but that's a guess. Here's my bold claim for the Xbox though. When it comes to the name, I keep calling it Xbox Beyond. I think what they might go with is Xbox 4K. A, because they're trying to own the whole 4K gaming thing, and B, because it is actually the fourth console. Xbox has never had conventional names. There's no real reason to think they wouldn't do something that absurd. Numbers and Microsoft have never really gone too well together, so why not call it Xbox 4K? Yeah, and then beyond that, when we talk about new games and all that, I think, like I said, there's going to be some that I think will be current, but there's also going to be a bunch that I think will be more like, hey, and this is coming for the next console and all that stuff. I think we're also going to end up with a lot of collections of stuff, like the new Tomb Raider games. Like Square Enix will probably announce maybe at their own thing, or it'll be announced at the Xbox conference, a whole new like trilogy pack of those games that will come as, you know, the re-rendered, the high definition, totally remastered experience, the perfect 4K versions that will be available on our platform when it launches. You know, that type of thing. I feel like we're gonna get a lot of collections when those consoles launch of the 4K versions of a whole bunch of games, but time enough for that down the road. But getting back to the Nintendo thing, now, again, I said this before, there was some sort of connection between Nintendo with the Switch and the Xbox and blah, blah, blah. We've kind of already explored it. If Shigeru Miyamoto's already in town for the Ubisoft thing, and this is just guessing, it wouldn't surprise me if he's the dude to come out on stage with someone from Microsoft and the handshake and be like, we're working together on whatever, and we'll see. Again, these are all bold predictions. Any of them could be right, any of them could be wrong, and I'm sure I missed a whole bunch of stuff. But I'm excited to see how it plays out. And like I said, I'll be at several of these conferences, and I will do reaction videos afterwards. I hope you guys will check them out. I hope you enjoyed this video. Again, if you checked out the conference video, or didn't, you should check that out just to get a sense of what makes a conference good. And I want to thank you guys very much for watching. I hate to say this, I really do, because I've never said it once in the entire history of me making videos, but if you guys could try something crazy, liking, subscribing, I feel gross even saying it, but if you could, I would appreciate that as well. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you all later.